Hi, my name is Chris Collier. I am the host of Conquer with Chris, the podcast you don't want to miss. Today, I have a great guest. I have Becky Peroz. Welcome to the show, Becky.
Hi, Chris, and thanks for having me.
Oh, all my pleasure. Listen, tell the people where you're from, kind of what you do.
So I'm Australian, if you can't tell by the accent. And I've been to America. It's not down near Mexico. It's a little bit further. We have the Great Barrier Reef and the Sydney Opera House here. And I live in the beautiful sunny state of Queensland, where we've just recovered from a great deal of rain. I don't even know if the flooding made it over there. But yeah, there's a lot of puddles over here at the moment. But normally we're known for the sunny state. So yeah, a little coastal seaside city. Which is very nice, and in between two sort of large cities, so it gives me kind of that, you know, outside of city living with nice access. So yeah, I share my life with two demons. They're disguised as Rhodesian Ridgebacks, but I'm pretty sure they're demons. So they're 2.5, so they're still in the puppy stage, and they're beautiful, but they're a handful, 55-kilo handfuls each. So yeah, that keeps me occupied.
And what is it you do currently?
So I've had 30 years in construction, and you know, a lot of leadership through that process, a lot of challenges, as I'm sure you can imagine. You know, I've been on project management teams of up to $500 million major sort of landmark projects. And just recently I've kind of, you know, as we all have, had to pivot and kind of change what we do. And so I've been exploring coaching a little bit more in terms of turning that into commercial, because I do a lot of mentoring and coaching for young women in the industry and have for quite some time. And also writing. I'm getting into writing for magazines, and I've produced my own book, and supporting others through the self-publishing process. So I kind of do a bit of everything. I don't like to do one thing. I'm not kind of designed that way. I get bored easily once I know something. So it's kind of quick. Where's the next challenge?
Well, that's great. That's great. Let's go back into the beginning of your story. Maybe not to the very beginning, but kind of let's pick it up maybe in your teens or young adulthood, and how you got started in the construction industry, and proceed from there.
Well, considering we're talking about conquering, it's kind of that story of how did that even happen? So I had a very poor childhood, very dysfunctional family, alcoholic father, and all the kind of abuse that came along with that. So I don't have fond memories of childhood or teenagehood. And teenagehood particularly was quite lonely, very isolated, very much not allowed to interact with the public, and obviously because, you know, there's that kind of stigma of sort of little secret with, you know, domestic violence and all that sort of stuff 30 years ago and beyond, and even now, although that is getting better. So I went from an environment where I was told I wasn't worthy and didn't belong and had no value into engineering. And again, 30 years ago, there wasn't the push for females in STEM or the support for that. So I kind of, you know, transitioned into an environment where I was told the same messages that I'd grown up with. Yeah, so it was challenging, confronting. It was very obviously something that I had to make work. You know, I was told very bluntly I didn't belong. They weren't going to change for me. You know, this is back in the day before discrimination acts and things had been in place. So, you know, there were still the calendars and the magazines in the bathroom. There was no ladies' bathroom because that, you know, we're not going to change for you. So really challenging. How I got into it was, you know, I was looking to escape my childhood, and so I kind of had criteria. I want a, you know, high-paid job because I'd never grown up with money. I wanted something that would take me away and potentially global. So engineering I just fell into it without really knowing what it was. So I worked in the field while doing my engineering degree in order to pay for it. And unlike most students, I didn't kind of choose the hospitality route. I actually went and got a full-time job drafting in the same environment I was doing my degree, which was fantastic to kind of accelerate my career. So by the time I finished my degree, I had a lot of more edge than my counterparts. But even that was, you know, filled with challenges, because at age 18, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which, you know, when you're 18, you kind of go, how do I have this old person's disease? And obviously through a lot of research, it's not actually an old person's disease. That's just how it's portrayed. So that was incredibly challenging physically, mentally. I just kind of kicked off my career and seen this pathway out of and away from my childhood to then kind of have this massive smack in the face happen again. And then to double down on that, the company I was working for sacked me Christmas Eve because of my ill health. And, they thought they were doing the right thing and just go and do uni and all that. But, they came from a much more privileged background than I did and didn't realize that I couldn't do my degree without having the job to support it. So, yeah, tough start. So when you kind of talk about teens, I didn't have the standard, fun college times and, hanging out with people at the beach or any of that. I was very, very alone. And through all of this, I didn't have any support network. I didn't have any friends because I was never encouraged as a child and I didn't really know how to make them. So I did a lot of searching from that point on to, the old, what's wrong with me and how do I fix it? And, we've all done that because when it's all this feedback and when you've been told it your entire life, you tend to go, well, it must be me and therefore I must improve, be better, change, all of that sort of thing. So fast forward through a lot of reading, a lot of self-development, a lot of exploration of all the things. I tried extreme woo kind of stuff with candling and Reiki, and I tried really practical stuff of, psychology, psychologists, and none of it really helped until I got to a life coaching course. And I'm not real fond of the phrase life coaching, but it was based around NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And that was a challenge, but it was also incredibly powerful in terms of the control it suddenly gave me over my own mindset and the ability it allowed me to start changing the story. And from that, I was then able to realize that all of these achievements that I had made, and a part of that was also I was very driven. At 18, when I was given this diagnosis, I was told I'd likely be in a wheelchair by 24 and not likely to survive past 40 due to complications from medicine and disease and things like that. So that's a big...
Boy, they were just so encouraging.
I know. You can see why people kind of go, how did you make it through that? When I just had nothing but... messages, give up, it's not worth it, change what you do, fade away, disappear, it's too hard. Everything was telling me that.
So let me ask you a question, and maybe you found this to be true or not, but I've heard a lot of people saying a lot of diseases caused by self-thought, right? Do you agree with that? You kind of bring that back, maybe it's not actually caused, but maybe it's influenced. I heard of someone who had some type of arthritis, maybe not the type you have, but it was caused because they didn't really understand that they were important, and all that negative vibration back upon themselves caused them to kind of just their body break down, because we are thoughts, right? We were made out of thoughts originally. And so going back through it, all that negative energy back on themselves just kind of crushed their body.
In some regards, that has merit, particularly in terms of your mindset and dealing with that. But the reason I don't like that idea so much, and I kind of push back against it in terms of that's the whole and total answer, is it puts the blame on the person who has the disease. It makes it their fault. It makes them wrong. It makes them defective. And I have a real problem with that in terms of, sometimes stuff happens. There's a lot genetically as well as energetically that can happen. So I think while that has merit in terms of checking in and using that shock of a chronic illness and diagnosis to check in with how you treat yourself, that's certainly very valid and has ramifications in how well you manage your disease and your recovery and those things. I think that's a path that can be taken too far and become a very toxic blame situation, in that if I can't fix myself with my mindset, then I'm still wrong. And becoming attached in that space is quite damaging, I think, for individuals. Some people lose limbs through no fault of their own. They can't grow that limb back through the power of their mind.
Right.
So, I kind of go, there's a line to be drawn that sometimes stuff just happens.
Right. The world's broken itself. So there's no, it's like, why did that plane crash? Well, the world's broke.
Yes.
And imperfect people make aircraft. Imperfect people make decisions about the aircraft. That's why it crashes. It's not God did it or the universe did it or whatever you believe in. It happens because
It's not the one person. Yeah, exactly. It's not that one person on the plane who was truly evil that deserved it, and then 240 other people also copped it at the same time. Like, that's where I think the metaphor can probably be taken too far. And I have seen that in some coaching spaces, which is why I'm really conscious to kind of go, there comes a point where you're okay to have the disease. It's not a sign that, you know, God, the universe, or anything hates you. It's just simply that's your challenge for life. And allow that space to then think about, you know, how kind you can be to yourself and how you can manage it and how you can move on and live a full and happy life regardless of, you know, diagnoses and things like that. And I guess I'm living proof of that in some ways.
Right. Like, because you have the disease, but the disease doesn't have you, right?
That's the secret. Yes, you know, it's something. It's like, you know, living with being left-handed or right-handed or bald or, you know, blue eyes and green eyes. It's just a thing. It's a character trait. It's a part of who you are, and actually coming to accept that instead of continually thinking that you're wrong and less than as a result is, you know, certainly a big path to healing. Like, I'm in my 40s now, so not only am I not in a wheelchair, I'm still kicking. And, you know, so, and that was a big part of, I suppose, of, you know, that's my sort of, you know, next phase of my journey is I crammed so much into my life thinking that I wasn't going to have anything past 40. So, you know, by the time I was 27, I've achieved things that people who are 47 hadn't really achieved because they knew they had this life. And therein lies, you know, kind of my awareness and awakening to confidence was actually an external party kind of going, look at everything that you've achieved, female, leading projects, award-winning, you know, have a fabulous life, own a beautiful car, you know, living the dream, able to jet set wherever I want on a weekend, kind of, you know, the ultimate dream for a single woman kind of thing, in terms of that kind of freedom. And I've done that with what happened to me in my childhood and the disease. So kind of how can I see that how am I still feeding this beast of not enough and not worthy and not deserving of it? And that was where my mindset around that kind of whole confidence and who I am and accepting myself really kicked off. That sort of awareness that with what I've achieved, which is significantly more than my peers at the time, who didn't have the challenges I've had and were able to kind of cruise a bit more through life without this kind of driving need to, you know, establish themselves, that really turned my thinking about myself around.
So what you're saying is you had a moment of introspection and you saw the value that you created out of your necessity because you thought you weren't going to live as long. You thought you were going to be disabled or whatever because of your disease. So the disease actually was a benefit to you because you kind of used it as like a grape press or a wine press to press out more of you quicker than your, like you said, your peers. So that way you got more out of your life. And so where does that bring you now? How I guess you pivoted.
Well, okay, so I had that realization and then just kind of took off in my career and, you know, earned more money and had more awards and you strive for greater things and, you know, moved up in the hierarchy and all that sort of stuff. But what the other side of that was, what I realized is that was all I had done in my life. So I didn't have hobbies. I didn't, you know, have a lot of friends that I hung out with just for fun. You know, I had friends that would be like, you want to go to Adelaide? Yep, sure, let's go. And we'd go and, you know, eat and drink wine, but there was no real connection other than that. So I started kind of filling in the rest of my life, as it were. So I started putting less importance on my job because I could see that I'd already achieved enough and that if I just kept tracking, I'd keep achieving. I didn't need to kind of, you know, chase after it with quite so much, you know, gusto and determination. And I could allow some energy to go and, you know, try some hobbies and do some interesting things and take a bit more time to get to know me as a person outside of my achievements, because that's what I was, just a list of achievements. So, which was great for the confidence and that realization. But then, you know, I wanted to be a whole person, I suppose. And so that was kind of the next 5 years of, you know, trying this and exploring that and doing a bit more. And, you know, having more achievements, but kind of understanding that I was doing this to experience it rather than to have the tick in the box at the end of the list.
So you were really just finding out who you were. You knew you could work, you could do the work, you could make the accolades, you could do whatever. But now you're kind of filling yourself out, saying, okay, not only am I an engineer, but what am I besides that, right? How am I as a friend? How am I as a traveler?
As a being, how am I as a volunteer? All that kind of, I kind of call it the phase of where I became a real girl. In that kind of, I wasn't just all work and achievement, and that was the sum total of my life. I learned to go to a meal and actually just enjoy the taste and the flavors and sitting there just being present with the meal instead of like, this is just food for my body and get it in quickly so I can race off to the next achievement. It's that kind of shift. It didn't mean I relaxed any more than what I hadn't been relaxing beforehand. It didn't mean I relaxed so much, but I was able to be present with myself a lot more. And, that tends to make us a more whole and complete human being and allows that connection to others. And as a result of that development, I was able to start surrounding myself with some really good friends and some really good peers and, long-term attachments that, and those people are still in my life today. Whereas before that, I didn't have time for that. I'm like, and what's the point? I'm not going to be around for very long. Emotions, all that stuff. Engineer as much as anything, but also too, like, ain't nobody got time for that.
Well, if it's all right, can we address that for a minute? Because you knew in your mind, right? It's funny because I think about Churchill, right? He said, I forget what it was, but it was going from success is going from defeat to defeat with a lot of gusto. It was something of that nature, right? So, but you had it in your mind. I'm going to be successful. I know the end is coming, right? I don't have time for all that other stuff.
Yes, exactly.
And you accomplished so much, but now you're starting to be able to enjoy. There's a saying. One of the tribes of Israel named Benjamin, and it says, Benjamin, go out in the morning and get your prey. In the evening, you can enjoy it. And what people don't understand, that's a idiom for saying when you're young, go get your financial welfare, go get what you need for life. And as you get older, you can enjoy it. So you did that without even knowing that was written.
Yep, pretty
much.
Because
you didn't think you had a future, right? You didn't think you.
Correct.
Versus, I don't have a future. I'm gonna sit at home and cry, which you may well have done. You may well have done, but you still went out and produced, right? Which is amazing because the mentality. So you started enjoying things. You started to enjoy life, enjoy friends, learn what life is really all about, right? You got all the accomplishments, but I think you probably felt
once you started disconnected from society and people and all the stuff that other people
shallow, right? A little bit shallow. I don't mean shallow in the way like Americans are shallow sometimes. I've got the gold watch, I got the car, I got
my life it was shallow rather than myself was shallow. I think there was a lot of depth in one area, but very little depth in other areas that make a complete human as we all come to learn as we grow older and do the self-development. That would be true.
I think that's a unique way to help and coach people. I mean, because really if you focus that as your kind of framework, let's get deep in this area. And then out of that deepness, you can fill in the other areas of your life, kind of the overflow. If you imagine like you have 6 cups in life, financial, mental, emotional, spiritual, blah, blah, blah. And as that first cup starts to overflow, it fills the other cups. So that's kind of what you did and not knowing it. That is amazing.
And this is why people kind of like, why did you, but all I had was, this choice, particularly with the diagnosis, was, give up, check out. And, that's where you kind of say, like, sit on the couch, feel sorry for myself, pity party, literally check out of life, those sorts of options of just, I'm going to give up or just go for it and just smash the hell out of life and make it my, mine. I'm trying not to swear because I know Americans don't do cuss words quite the way Aussies do. But, I made life my bitch instead of, feeling sorry for myself. And I really did. I really made that choice very young. And I think that's what's different about me compared to a lot of people who aren't faced with quite that sort of critical path. It's like, well, if I don't have 80 years and I've got 40 years, then I need to put 80 years into 40 years. And that really was my mindset. Which is, yes, as you said, led to all those things. But yeah, so I started to realize the gaps and kind of filling it in with, with just beautiful people and beautiful scenery and beautiful food and all the things that I never really stopped to be in the moment with and appreciate were just kind of, they were servicing this body that I needed to keep going in order to achieve. So it didn't stop the achievements. What it did is just, it made me realize that I could also stop and celebrate the achievements and be present with those as well, instead of just like, right, tick, 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 which is kind of what it was, up until sort of, nearly 30s. And you're right, I didn't get a lot of that process out of books and all the self-development either. But coaching, as I said, around that time where I did the coaching was where it kind of allowed me that space to create. Realizing already what I created, that I had the power of creation. I didn't need to keep learning. I could simply start practicing and doing. So there was a lot more space in my life to take on those things that were just purely for enjoyment, which is a really novel idea. And so, that kind of insert the next sort of, I suppose, 10 plus years of really embracing that and doing that and living the life and achieving more. And then, I got to about 38, I think. And kind of, that big 4-0 was looming. But I was approached by someone to write a contribution to an anthology about leadership. And I'd been a technical writer in my engineering career and done massive amounts of writing, but never really saw myself as a writer. But this particular lady was like, no, I want something from you. And so I gave it a go because, I'm always new opportunity, new achievement, something different, challenging, all ticked all the boxes of this is, where I'm going to go. And so I did that. And what I found was the freedom in that sort of creative content, excuse me, as opposed to the rigidity of technical writing. And it was still about leadership and stuff that I was very present with and very familiar with and very knowledgeable about. But the freedom to kind of express it in my way was kind of life-changing, might be exaggerating a bit, but it's up there in that kind of, wow, this is amazing. So I kind of got the writing bug. Excuse me, I'm just going to need to have some water. Okay. So I kind of did that for a year or two. And this particular lady was based in the US. So at the beginning of the year I turned 40, she asked me to come to America and present at her yearly conference in Kentucky. And I kind of went, big 4-0, sure, why not? This ticks a lot of boxes of, go and see a place I've never been, plan for a big 40th over there, go and get on stage for a different audience, because I'd done some public speaking for about 10 years up to that point. So this is a big thing. And of course, too, thinking like this, not trying to put it out there, but end of life celebration. So anyway, headed over to the US for 4 weeks, starting with Kentucky and this ladies conference. Did really well. She gave me an award for my literary contributions and things like that. So that was all very, very edifying and very affirming of my achievements. And then we traveled around, went to New York, and I'm an engineer, so, Empire State Building, one of the most amazing builds in the world. Then we did a road trip down to New Orleans, as you say, because I've always loved that kind of Louisiana style and Cajun food. I've just always wanted to do that, so that was on our list. So we did like Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and had some exploration through there. And we planned to hit Vegas for my 40th. So for the last 4 days or so, we were in Vegas on my 40th birthday. And, we did all the Vegas stuff, did the helicopter flight to the Grand Canyon, which is amazing. did Cirque du Soleil kind of in the Bellagio, the big one with the pool that, I would never see if I wasn't there kind of thing. So we did a lot of that stuff. And it was amazing and it was fun and I really enjoyed all of it. But what I kind of realized when I was there in the turning 40s, I kind of took stock of myself, where I was at in life, where I was at physically, and kind of realized that this whole kind of, dropping off at 40 probably wasn't going to happen. I'm still walking, I'm still talking, I'm still healthy, I'm still moving, I'm still pretty good comparatively.
Right, compared to what they expected of you.
I know, like shock horror, possibly I'm not going to be kicking it anytime soon. So now what? Because I'd kind of like, that was your bucket list done. That was the plan, get to 40, bucket list done. Right, okay, we're good now, see us. And kind of having that moment, particularly, the Grand Canyon with all its awesomeness, it was those kind of things that made me sort of go, I might be here for a bit longer than I thought. Now what do I do? So new bucket list, and that's had some different stuff in it, and that's where I've really explored writing. I've published my own book. I now coach people and teach them how to self-publish, because I believe there's a lot of autonomy to be given to people to tell their story, particularly some of the gateways that traditional publishing has. And obviously people like me with disabilities who want their story out there so others can relate. I'm actively sort of trying to coach and mentor people more. So I do some volunteer mentoring with women in industry through a couple of industry bodies. I had a conversation with one last night, and I give a lot of value. I'm not built to kind of go, I have a 6 months course, sign up for it, and I'm going to just trickle feed you until the big aha moment at the end of the 6 months. I'm giving you value straight away. If I'm not giving you value in our first conversation, I'm not being authentic and honest for my own benefit, let alone you as a client. And so I was talking to her last night and kind of, helped her pivot her thinking and see herself in a new way. And she said, something that really resonated, I suppose, and so, wow, you've just kind of given me a life-changing moment. And I said it flippantly in response to her, but my response was, if I'm not giving a life-changing moment at least once in our first hour of conversation, I'm not doing my job. And that's where I kind of went, oh, that's really interesting that's, a key driver for me, a KPI, as it were. So, yes, I'm kind of just sitting with that going, well, that's good. That's amazing. That's wonderful. It's powerful, but I'm kind of in that space of, well, what do I do with that now that I know that is a big thing? So I'm kind of looking at that next stage of how do I engage with more people to give them those life-changing moments in an hour conversation? How do I pivot that into, something that can replace an income, and I can do that without, necessarily charging $1 billion for people to receive this, but also receiving my value and having a fair exchange. So I'm kind of in that place right now. And it's fantastic because I have a part-time job doing engineering and tenders and kind of my core business for 30 years. I have this writing desire that I'm kind of feeding as one of my new bucket lists and creating books. And then I have this sort of other space where I've got this creation or co-creation possible, where I can share, as you pointed out before, all these things that I've learned in this way of thinking and being and doing with others. And I'm kind of trying to expand that currently. So that's, sort of, the short version of my life story, as it were. And where I'm at now.
So how can people find you?
So I have a website, www.wordsofbeck.com.au. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Words of Beck, Insta. And I also have, as you can see, my little, this one, I have this little logo. I don't know if we can sort of get in there, but, it's a hard hat with boots and a crown on it. And it's got, rubble in the background to kind of show the journey's tough, but, through coaching. And my hashtag is get your boots on. Obviously construction and all that sort of stuff, but boots give you a solid foundation. They're hardy, they're long bearing, they go the distance, all the sort of metaphorical stuff that goes with that. So I have a coaching page, Get Your Boots on Facebook as well. If you're looking for me, I'm approachable by messenger. And yeah, I think you can contact me through my website as well, or you can, grab a copy of my book. All my contact details are in there, and that's available on Amazon. And that's how you spell. Actually, I should probably just, there you go, Words of Beck. There we are. So that's my website.com.au after that. Yeah, so I'm willing to work with just about anyone who's willing to do the work for themselves. I'm just a guide. I don't tell the people what to do. In fact, I believe that's actually counteractive to people learning. People don't learn if you tell them things, asking lots of good, valuable questions and challenging the way they're thinking and using NLP to help challenge mindsets and the self-talk. It's kind of where I'm at because it's been so effective for me. So really open to anyone who wants success.
What's your favorite quote?
I'd rather die of thirst than drink from the cup of mediocrity.
Wow, I love that. That's great. That's great.
That's a good one. Yeah.
That's great. That's a real good one. Yeah. Well, hey, Becky, it's been my pleasure to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
It's been an absolute pleasure having a chat with you, Chris.
Ladies and gentlemen, please like, subscribe, share. Thank you for joining us today. Have a great day. Remember, this is Conqueror Chris, the podcast you don't want to miss.